Okay. So for week two, we're discussing the moral dilemmas.
Yep.
Um, and we chose the pro-life versus pro-choice. And what was the
Good
other one?
coach versus bad role model.
Yeah. And then the which takes precedence, health concerns or privacy.
Yeah. Okay.
So how to start this off. Um, yeah, I guess with the pro-life versus pro-choice, I think in general with like the readings this week, it kind of made me realize like, oh, things aren't so cut and dry with like trying to figure out what's like ethical for everyone involved.
Yeah. Hmm.
Versus like, your morals and values. Yeah, I found like a hard time, especially with the pro-life versus pro-choice one, because I was very like, well, I'm gonna think of it of a medical stance, like she would, this is like a life or death scenario. So, um, but then it's also like, yeah, you're the therapist, so like you don't really have a huge like precedence over like telling them what to do with their body. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There was a couple things that stood out to me in this that
Mhm.
really helped me determine like which way my moral compass was pointing,
Mhm.
which is that first piece was that the doctor was concerned that their heart condition could result in a life-threatening emergency. So it was just a possibility, it wasn't a given. So
Mhm.
that's one piece that I'm holding. And then the other piece that I'm holding is that I didn't get a sense from this description about whether Samantha was excited about becoming a parent
Oh, yeah.
and
Mhm.
having a child. And so that I feel like is important to know, because if she was having ambivalence about having a kid in the first place, then I could see creating more space for, having a discussion at least about abortion. But if she's excited to have a child and she believes abortion is wrong, I just think that one of the things that can really happen there is like a lifetime of regret. And so I wouldn't want to interfere with her process of coming to her own decision about it. I would just want to support her, because this is also feels like a cultural issue.
Yeah,
This
definitely.
culturally, this goes against what she's always believed in.
Mhm.
Then that does feel like wrong influence on a
Mhm.
patient if I were to try to, convince her to do something otherwise.
Yeah, I definitely I didn't think about the her ambivalence to it actually. That's a really good point that you made. I would say like when I was reading through this, I was like, oh, I guess I would take more of like a care-based approach. Like you're saying, like the thinking about like being in the position of her and like what would be the best. And um I guess in the reading in general, it's always like put that person's like, you know, their best like potential and their decision has to be in their hands, but like being supportive of whatever that is.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, and it's interesting because it says like that she um believes like yeah, abortion is wrong, but she doesn't like currently go to church, but she was raised to believe these things. So I'm wondering if like she still would go back and forth with that. Um, like if
Yeah.
she were to go, like to really be like, oh, but I definitely believe in this. Um, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the fact that she says she believes God will heal her
Mm-hmm.
makes me feel like, she doesn't have to prove to me that she's actively uh religious,
Yeah.
by showing me that she goes to church, if
Yeah.
she has this belief in God, and God taking care of her,
Mhm.
it's not my job to try to convince her otherwise.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's interesting that like, you know, they're asking like, well, what would you in their do in their position? And I feel like if someone were to ask me while I was practicing with them, I'll be like, well, it's not really what I would do. I'm here to support what you want to do, type of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
yeah,
Right.
I'm
'Cause
not
that's
gonna
what being
tell her.
client centered is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not gonna be like, well, I'm pro-choice, so like, this is what I would do, but like, I'm not gonna tell her what my decision is because it seems like with such like a very vulnerable subject, she would be really influenced by what I would say, right? So, yeah, I think for in general, I would go very care-based in this regard. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's kind of, at least for this one in particular, it's like inevitable that I'll have like some sort of emotional reaction to it or like, um, but just because I would be worried about her uh health. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah, that's where I feel about that one in general.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool. Yeah. I'm good on that one. How about you?
Yeah.
Sorry about the dog barking.
Oh, it's okay. No worries.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
Hopefully my mom gets the door quickly to calm her down. Um, shall we go to good coach, bad role model?
yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Oh my gosh, can we pause the recording so I can ask people to be quiet in my house?
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay. So let's see.
Yeah, I was excited to work with the good coach, bad role model
Mhm.
analysis because it's similar to a case that I was actually a plaintiff in.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, like I was uh we had sorry, content warning right here, I should just say.
Mhm.
Um, I had a doctor who was a molester,
Oh,
and but he was also like a star doctor at UCLA, and because he brought in so much money, he was in oncology, gynecology, like super specialized field, and he was like really considered a great doctor. And he brought a lot of money to the school, and so the school failed to investigate the first time someone made a complaint about him. Um, and so eventually, some brave women came forward, and he's actually in prison now.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So my personal experience makes me feel very clear, like in what I think about this, which
Yeah.
is just you really institutions, it's really incumbent upon them to make a uh be be really strong and decisive in um their treatment of these situations, because it sets precedent. It
Yeah.
says what it shows what they will tolerate.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, I also believe in um kind of a uh post prison post I'd like to be in a care first society that doesn't lock everyone up or whatever, or cancel everyone, and allows people to um do better and make themselves worthy of continuing to be in society. But like, this guy sounds like he's been getting away with a lot for a long time, and I feel like shame on the um school, is it the university, for not investigating the earlier allegations.
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly how I felt. I was like, oh, you just let him kind of get away to the point where now everyone on the team is being affected by what he's doing.
Yeah.
So I felt similar where I was like, to me, it's a situation where it's like, well, what's for the greater good? It would be for him to be reprimanded for what he did. And then I was like, another, like after the fact of him, being let go from this position, doing like a rule that so in the future this won't happen again.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel, yeah, like you're saying, it's for a university, so there should be actual rules anyways, like instilled for something like this if it were to happen. But um, yeah, I think I felt similar, was just like, well, this is what I think. I think he should be reprimanded for what he did. Um, I think like, yeah, he could make a mistake, but it seems like he has been doing this like, more than once. So
Exactly.
yeah.
I feel also like both the care-based and the ends-based
Mhm.
um, principles both lead us in that direction.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
All right. Shall we move on to the next one? The
yeah,
last one?
definitely.
Do you want to start us off?
Sure. Yeah, that's so we're doing the health concerns or privacy one.
Yeah.
And that one was one where I was like, oh yeah, this one is a complicated one.
Mhm.
Because it has to do with like safety, but also definitely has to do with the privacy. Um, yeah, I feel like I was like, okay, I should go with like the greater good in that like this is a pretty serious case. Like someone has, AIDS. Um, but then yeah, care-based wise, yeah, it's just so complicated to me. And I was like, is there even a way that this could be like a rule in the future? Um, I was listening to another like group's video how they're saying like, well, wouldn't the nurse be wearing gloves? Like, wouldn't yeah, like to kind of keep her in general from being like exposed to a lot of like pathogens, especially if people are bleeding. But
It does say she's off duty at this moment,
oh yeah, forgot.
but still, isn't it automatic for the nurse to be like, put gloves on before you
Yeah,
attend to anyone who's bleeding?
yeah, exactly. And then I'm also like, isn't that also an issue if she's off duty and she's like doing, anything to do with the hospital? But um,
Actually, I'm not sure about that. I actually think
yeah.
there might be don't know about a law, but I actually think there might be a thing that if you uh, have a capability of, I don't know, I might be making this up, but you might have an oral moral obligation to attend to
Right.
someone who's wounded if you have like medical
Oh
training.
yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Like if
Be
you're on
wrong.
a plane and someone's having like an issue, you ask like, is there a doctor? And yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. Huh.
I was
Um,
thinking, this sounds a little maybe wishy-washy,
mhm.
but I was a bit like, well, can't, so, I mean, of course, and also you're in the middle of a tense and um high stress moment, so not necessarily you're going to have all your wits about you to like think of all the what's the best option or what's the right thing to say or do in this scenario. But I was thinking, like, I was trying to put myself in the position of Sashim and talking to the nurse, and I was feeling like, can't you say it without saying it? Like, can't you go to the nurse and say, um, you need to go wash your hands now and put protection on, you know,
Yeah, right.
or something like that, or you shouldn't be touching his blood. You should go wash yourself. What
Yeah.
you don't have to explicitly reveal, but you can let
Mhm.
her know that,
You put
like,
yourself at risk,
yeah,
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 yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was wondering too. I was like, I don't think, you know, necessarily needs to be like that person has AIDS. Like there's definitely more of like a tact, tactful way that you could
Yeah.
reveal that like, oh, maybe, yeah, there's something going on. But
Hmm.
yeah, I wonder, huh. Yeah, I'm
It's,
still like,
I agree though that it's a much more challenging or nuanced
yeah.
scenario.
Because, yeah, I was reading into it like, oh, if it's care based, then there's so many different people you have to think about. And I was like, with their rule based, I was like, I don't know if there would even be anything specific you could do about something like this that would be forever, like a
Exactly.
universal. Yeah. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So I think this is one I would like more like guidance on.
Hmm.
Um,
They
yeah.
say in the end space analysis
Mm,
um, paragraph, they say the clearly the greatest good for the greatest number would dictate that Sashim tell the nurse about Mark's disease.
yeah.
That's interesting. That they're so unequivocal there
Yeah.
is interesting.
Yeah, because it was saying like it also involves other people that the nurse might touch later, and it's like a whole like I was like,
Yeah.
huh, I guess I didn't think of it that way. Um,
Yeah, it's true. And there is also like a lag time. Let's say so the nurse has been exposed now. Doesn't mean the nurse will get the disease. She probably won't. But there's like a latency period between when you're exposed and when you would test positive if you did pick it up. So if she did pick it up, we don't know how long it would be until she finds out. And then she could be putting people at, like you're saying, she could be putting
mhm.
people at risk during that time. She might never find out, right? Like, because if you didn't realize you'd been exposed,
Yeah,
you
like why
might
would you
never
get
get
tested?
tested. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So it does seem like you do end up having to tell her. I mean, for
Yeah.
me, I'm coming to that conclusion now.
Yeah. That's how I felt too when I was reading. I was like, I guess I would just have to tell her, like,
Mhm.
and then face like any sort of consequences, like if yeah, if Mark wanted to be like, well, that's illegal to do, or I want to know more of like the legal stance around it too. Because I don't know if there is like legality around that.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's
Mhm.
such a great, maybe it's a really gray area in terms of the legality.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the other thing is like, can't you tell the nurse, but not tell Mark that you told the nurse?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I
So,
mean, do you have to tell?
mhm.
That's another ethical question I have is why do you have to go then tell Mark that you told the nurse if you're just telling the nurse for her own protection and care?
Right.
What good does it do to tell Mark that you told her that?
That's where it would be like your own like personal morals, I guess. It would be like, well, I want to tell the truth from this stance, but I also agree where why would I tell him? Yeah, if it's like I'm more concerned about whether the nurse is going to get AIDS in the end, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
Huh. Okay. Well, these are all interesting. It's fun to think about them. Well, fun when you're not actually in the situation.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
All
Cool.
right.
Any final thoughts?
I think just a lot to digest. Yeah, in general.
Uh-huh.
With the reading this week too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. Okay. Well, thanks, Karina.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good talking it through with you.
Yeah, you too.